Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I hope you're having a fabulous week. Yesterday was absolutely beautiful, and that you all enjoyed your long weekend. Today I'm here to talk fairly briefly, or what I think is briefly, about dog bite prevention, because I'm pretty certain I have talked about this before, and there's two main things I want to cover. The importance of safety and education, and 2, the dog bite scale, because a lot of people don't know about it, but some of the information is fairly reassuring, so I think that will help. First of all, I have been bitten by a dog before. I believe I was about 12, and we were tobogganing, and my cousin's German Shepherd was at the top of the hill, and we were partway down. We had just left the top of the hill, and the dog decided to chase me, latch onto my upper thigh, had my whole leg in his mouth, and if I wasn't wearing snow pants, I probably would have had severe bleeding, but it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, and because of the snow pants, it didn't even puncture the skin, thank God, but I do have a scar about this long on my leg because of that, and it hasn't changed my opinion of dogs in general, or German Shepherd more specifically, but I realize that a lot of people don't know how to act around dogs or don't know anything about safety around dogs, because I see a lot of kids wandering up to strange dogs. So just some things you may want to know. Don't disturb an eating or sleeping dog. They can be startled and bite out of reflex. It's not because they want to hurt you, it's a defensive mechanism. The majority of the times that dogs bite people, it's because they're saying, don't come any closer, and then you come closer. Second, don't play rough with them or grab at them, especially if you latch onto their tail or their leg. They may think that you're biting them first if you have a grip with your fingers, so do be careful about that. Don't run past or bite past a dog that doesn't see you first. And if they do see you, give them lots of berth around you. I had an incident with Kaya when she was younger, because this kid on a skateboard came from behind us. We were on the sidewalk and he was on the road, and he came right beside her, and she turned around and barked at him. Didn't bite him, just barked him to say, I don't like you in my space, and he fell off his skateboard. But to think that there was another sidewalk on the other side of the street that he could have skateboarded down, or at least not been on the road, that Kaya's just protecting her space. And I did hear it, but I couldn't tell what side of the road it was on. But again, that's a safety issue, especially with kids in the summer, as the weather's getting warmer. You do want to make sure that your kids, especially, know how to treat strange dogs on the street. Even if they know the dog, sometimes it can startle the dog, so just be careful about that. Don't corner them or stand above them. So a lot of times if they're sitting or laying down and you lean over them, that can be seen as a sign of aggression, because sometimes when dogs are playing, one dog will put their head over the shoulder of the other dog, and that's a dominance symbol. So a lot of times you do have to be careful with that. Some dogs don't mind, but some dogs that think they're fairly high in the dominance hierarchy, that will bother them quite a bit. The most obvious one, do not approach unattended or strange dogs. Just don't. You're putting yourself at risk. You don't know where the animal's been. You don't know anything about them. You don't know if they've had any background training, for example, police dogs that are off duty. And if the dog becomes too excited or aggressive, the recommendation from the website I got these specific things from is to be a tree. And this basically means stand completely still, put your arms at your side, and don't move. Because if you're not moving, they won't find you interesting. And I feel like that would work in some cases, but the dog still has your scent. So depending on what you've done to the dog, there's no guarantee that that will work. But the most basics on how to approach, or the most simple way on how to approach dogs, is avoid eye contact. Don't stare directly at them because, again, that can be seen as a sign of dominance. Approach at an angle, so don't walk straight towards them. Kind of come in sideways with one of your shoulders towards them, and again, don't look at them. For smaller dogs, you want to crouch so you're at the same level as them, because if you're bigger than them, that can be seen as a sign of dominance or make them nervous in general. Let them sniff you. Again, don't put your hand right out. Most people recommend doing a fist and letting them smell it, but don't pet directly, here, because as soon as they see you reaching towards their head, that could trigger something. The safest place to pet them is the back. So usually just behind the spine, that's nice and calm. Or sometimes they'll let you pet them on the chest. Some dogs are sensitive about that. But the most important thing you can do to protect your kid is to teach them to respect animals. And I know we've talked about how children who don't respect animals or who abuse animals have certain character traits that are more likely to result in dangerous people later on. Just a common thread they noticed among things like serial killers or people who have mental issues or murderers in general. And if there is a dog, even if you know the dog, even if they're family friends and you've known them forever, do supervise your kids, because if all of a sudden the dog's sleeping and one of the kids grabs its tail, there's no guarantee. And that's the other thing. People say, oh no, my dog's fine, perfectly safe, and then a trigger happens or something startles them, and that's it. And a lot of times too, if the dog bite is fairly serious, that the owner of the person who owns the dog that got bit, or the parent of the child, can complain and have your dog destroyed if something serious does happen. So that's something else to consider. So the dog bite scale, there are 6 levels, and for those who don't know, this is by Dr. Ian Dunbar. He is a gentleman in Europe who does a lot with dog behavior, and if you haven't seen any of his videos, I highly recommend it. They're very simple to follow, and a lot of the exercises are very easy. So the first level, and I should tell you this before we start, 99% of dog bites are the first 2 levels, which are the least dangerous. So the majority of dogs aren't, I don't want to say trained or bred, because some breeds are not more aggressive than other breeds, but most dogs will not bite and shake. So level 1 is aggressive behavior with no skin contact. So they may growl and they may snap, but they don't actually make skin contact, and it's more or less to warn the person to go away. Level 2 is skin contact but no puncture of the skin. So this is the type of dog bite that I had, because it actually didn't puncture the skin, although it did scar. It only got the top level, thank goodness, but these, you're still supposed to go to the hospital and get checked after, because the dog could have rabies and you do want to get that checked out. Sometimes they will give you a tetanus shot, or if it does puncture the skin, antibiotics or something like that. Level 3 is 1 to 4 punctures, meaning the teeth marks, from a single bite, with none of them longer than half the depth of the canine tooth, meaning about that deep. This is the point where the dog presents a threat. So this is the point where animal control can be called and the dog can be removed from the vicinity because it presents a danger to other people. Level 4 is 1 to 4 punctures from a single bite and at least 1 deeper than half the depth of the canine tooth. There's potential bruising because the more aggressive dogs tend to bite and then shake, which is what feral dogs do when they catch prey. They do that so that it breaks their neck and then they can eat it. This is a warning flag. This is when you should be very concerned because this animal will do anything to protect itself. And a lot of times shaking and bruising can rip a lot of the skin. But this is the point where they clamp on harder to shake because you cannot get that dog off your arm or leg or what have you. Number 5 is multiple level 4 bites or multiple attacks. So this is when the dog bites, or bites, or bites, lets go, circles again, and bites. So a lot of times these dogs are either extremely terrified or they're protecting something, or they just don't know better. A lot of animals, especially those from puppy mills or ones from abusive homes, they're really just trying to protect themselves and they don't know that there's better ways to do that. Once the dog reaches a level 5, this is when animal control recommends solitary confinement or euthanasia because their dogs at this point are very hard to rehabilitate. So between living their entire life in a pen, not being allowed to communicate with other animals, or being put down, a lot of times I recommend being put down as the more humane option. And level 6, which is very, very rare, is that the victim, whether it be a dog or a person, is killed. And thank goodness that's very rare, but you would be surprised how many times I see taking Kai out for a walk, or we go to the dog park, and people bring their toddlers. And they've never met any of these dogs before. And the toddlers go into a group of dogs and just start running around and flailing their arms. And you have no idea about, there's 12, 15 dogs, and they have absolutely no idea. It blows my mind that people would do that without at least having their kid close by. Like, this kid was halfway through the dog park and the parent was watching him out of one eye, but you're not close enough to get them. If something happens, the dogs are much faster. So do keep an eye on your kids. Do teach them the importance of respecting animals and respecting their space. It could mean the difference between a hospital visit or not. So please do that. That is all I have to say about dog bites. And a lot of people that get minor bites are traumatized for life, and they will never like dogs, they will never pet dogs, none of that. But a lot of it is you have to look at it from their perspective, because if you're in their space or they feel threatened or they don't know what's going on or you startled them, then part of that is your fault too. So I hope you have a lovely rest of your week. I know it's raining right now, but it's going to get nice later this week. And we have another lovely weekend coming up. I know this week is shorter because of the long weekend, which for some reason I always forget and think it's whichever weekend's closest to May 24th. But it was actually before this time. So I hope you have a lovely week, and I will see you next Tuesday.